Headline, front page, Wall Street Journal. Now, you have to understand something if you are interested in consuming news in America. I assume you are, since you're consuming me right now on radio and television. So Wall Street Journal, in their news pages, is a left-wing situation. In their editorial pages, they're not. They lean right on the editorial side, but they lean left on their news coverage. The headline today is, law firms that appease Trump face backlash. Okay? The article is that if a law firm settles with the president, that it's being punished. Some of its lawyers quit. Some people won't do business with it, whatever. There is only one pro-Trump lawyer mentioned in the entire article. Okay? One. And a lot of lawyers who have helped or worked or support Donald Trump have gotten hurt big time. So therefore, the Wall Street Journal tilts it, okay, left, saying, oh, no, don't settle with Trump because you'll get hurt. But they ignore the fact that the same thing is going on by the left punishing any attorneys who support Donald Trump. And joining us now is one of them. Cleta Mitchell comes from Pinehurst, North Carolina today. She is the founder and chairman of the Election Integrity Network. So you, after the election of 2020, were involved with Georgia and the controversy down there about whether the votes were counted accurately. And you got hurt doing that, correct? Tell us what happened to you.
Well, thank you, Bill, for having me and letting me talk about this.
Sure.
Because it's only been one side that's been told for the last 40 years, and that's by the left-wing media, including the Wall Street Journal news pages, as you pointed out. I was a partner at a large law firm in Washington, D.C. for almost 20 years. And after I was asked by the White House to go to Georgia the day after the election, so November 4th of 2020. I'm an election attorney. I practiced campaign finance and election law for many years. And so I was asked to go to Georgia and just to see what was going on and to just check out the election situation. And so I arrived there in the wee hours of the 5th of November, and I started looking at what had gone on in the election and realized that the election was a mess. And I will just say that's not a legal term of art. It's just exactly, but it is exactly what happened. So many votes that were cast and counted in violation of state law. People registered at P.O. boxes. That's illegal in Georgia. People whose registrations were recorded as having been what the post office records showed were vacant premises, either vacant lots or nobody lived there. And adding all of that up, basically we knew that there were more votes that were cast and counted and were included in the certified total than the margin of victory between President Trump and Joe Biden. So I was one of the president's volunteer lawyers, and that was interesting in and of itself because there had been this real push from the left, just like what you were reading today, where there was this big leftist push starting the day after the election, where law firms were threatened and told that people would take their business away from law firms who represented President Trump in the post-election of 2020. So let's start with that. And so here I am, I'm a partner in a big law firm, and I'm volunteering because my firm decided not to accept payment because they didn't want to basically telegraph to the outside world that we were doing anything on behalf of the president. And so fast forward, we filed an election contest, 64 pages, over 1,100 pages of exhibits, and we never got a judge appointed to hear the case, which was very odd. I believe we could talk about that on a separate podcast. But the bottom line is that we ended up, the president wanted to have a conversation with the Secretary of State because we hadn't had a judge appointed, and to see if there might be some way to resolve the case by comparing the data that was included in our litigation with the data that the Secretary of State said that he had in his office, but he wouldn't share with us. And so to try to get some resolution before the certification and of the
Okay, let me
Georgia
stop you
electoral
there.
votes.
They never got it. And you believe that there was illegalities involved in the total. I think you believe that Trump won the state. Is that correct?
Well, in all honesty, Bill, and I've said this to the president, I don't think we know who won because
Okay,
the election was such a mess.
that's absolutely valid, and there you go. But there are enough questions whereby it should have been
That's right.
clarified, and it wasn't.
That's right.
Okay,
And so
you
we were
did
following the law.
you
We're following
did
the
it.
law.
You did an honest job. Your law
Correct.
firm. Do you want to mention the law firm? Name the law firm?
I'd rather not.
Okay.
Yeah, rather not.
So you were down there on your own dime. You do an honest job. You come back to D.C. and they fire you.
No, what happened was that the Secretary of State, in a phone call that was arranged to discuss the data that was in our lawsuit with the Secretary of State, that phone call was illegally recorded by the Deputy Secretary of State, a woman by the name of Jordan Fuchs. And she was in Florida at the time. She lied about it to the Washington Post, by the way, because Florida is a two-party consent state. You're not supposed to record a phone call unless you have the consent of the other people on the call.
Right.
And she did not obtain that. She recorded the call, then released the tape to the Washington Post the next day. And so that phone call, the president has been quoted in that phone call as saying, we just need to find 12,000 votes, as though he was asking the Secretary of State to go find votes.
No, he was just clarifying how many votes were needed
Right.
to
That's right.
overturn the state. Look,
We'd already found all
any
of
honest broker knows that, but I'm interested in
Right.
you. I'm interested in
Okay.
you now.
So
okay?
once that transcript was released by the Washington Post,
Yeah.
within 24 hours, the Lincoln Project, which is run by a bunch of never Trumpers,
Right.
perverted people, they started posting on Twitter the phone numbers of our offices, the firm's offices. We had offices all over the country, and telling people to start, and then listing some of our major corporate clients, which is a matter of public record, and having people call the corporate clients to tell the corporate clients to call their relationship partner to tell the partners that they were going to take their business away from our law firm unless the firm fired me. And
personally.
It literally shut down me personally.
Okay, so they threatened your law firm. You better fire Cleta Mitchell, or we're going to take our business elsewhere. Okay.
Correct.
Now,
correct.
Did any media report that?
Oh, what they reported was that I was forced out of the firm. I ended up resigning from the firm. We reached an agreement, but what they've all reported for 4 years is that I was the attorney who tried to overturn the election in Georgia. Filing an election contest is not considered overturning
but they
an
didn't
election.
Report that you were threatened by the Lincoln Project.
No.
None of that was reported.
None of that was reported. No. We had to shut down the switchboards in all of our offices.
I know the horror.
Country.
Cleta, you know me for a long time. I've been through this. I've been through this time and time and time again. Okay?
Yes.
And that's why I got out. That's why I got out.
Right.
All right?
You're right. Well,
I'm just not going to deal with it anymore.
Honestly.
Right.
I just said, so I left the law firm in January of 2021. And I haven't practiced law since then, but what I spent my time doing since February 1st of 2021, I've been the senior legal fellow at the Conservative Partnership Institute, and I founded the Election Integrity Network, and I've been working full-time on election integrity. But every news article refers to me as the lawyer who tried to help Trump overturn the election in 2020.
And it's a smear.
The other thing, yes, and then within about a month, just a few weeks later, I received a bar complaint that was I was originally admitted to the bar in Oklahoma. That's where I'm from, and I practiced law there before I moved to Washington, D.C. in the 1990s. And so I'm a member of the bar in Washington, D.C. and in Oklahoma. And so I had a bar complaint filed against me by 29 people, lawyers. I've never heard of. I'd never heard of
No,
one
they're
of
all
them.
organized into a cabal.
Correct.
Let's
And
get
half of
Cleta
them were Biden
Mitchell.
donors.
Right.
Right.
Okay.
And then what I learned then is that began a trend, a project founded by David Brock. You may remember
I know
David
him.
Brock.
Smear merchant.
So
Right.
he created something called the 65 Project, and they filed bar complaints against every lawyer in America who, in any way, shape, or form, had
Supported
represented
Trump.
President Trump.
Right.
Right.
And that
Right.
these projects are paid for by people like George Soros. I don't know if Soros directly paid this, but that's where the money comes from. Brock lives off that money, and he makes a lot of money himself.
He makes a lot of money with
to
it.
destroy
people
like you.
Right.
Right. All right,
Right.
Cleta.
And so
we have it.
That bar complaint went on. What?
The bar complaint go anywhere? Real quick.
No, but they didn't dismiss it for 3 years. It was fully briefed, but it wasn't dismissed for 3 years.
So you had to deal with it and all of that. Well, we're sorry.
Of course.
But I think you're better off now than you were, and you're helping the country more now.
I always say, I say that they thought they'd vanquished me, but what
they made you
really
stronger.
did was they made me, they freed me from billable hours, so I could just spend full time working on trying to fix the elections.
And I'm very happy that this broadcast here could tell your story, because that's the outrage. They just won't tell the truth. They being the Washington Post of the world, they're not interested in that. All right, Cleta, good luck to you. If anybody ever bothers you again, you come right to me, okay?
I appreciate that, Bill. Thank you.
See you. There is a lot of talk about government debt, but the real crisis is personal debt. You need Done with Debt. They have unique strategies to help end your debt fast, so you can keep more of your hard-earned money. And they will not try to sell you a loan. They're tough negotiators. Will go one-on-one with your credit card and loan companies to drastically reduce bills, eliminate interest, erase penalties. Clients end up with more money in their pocket on month 1. And they don't stop until you're debt-free. Take a few minutes. Visit donewithdebt.com. It's free, but listen, some solutions are time sensitive, so you have to move quickly. Go to donewithdebt.com. Donewithdebt.com. Tell them Bill sent you. 3 new polls about President Trump versus Zogby, favorable to the president. 1,000 likely voters. Do you approve or disapprove? 48% approve of the job President Trump is doing. 49% disapprove. Split right down the middle. Trafalgar poll, pro-Trump poll. Okay. 1,098 likely general election voters. How do you feel about President Trump handling his job? Approve 54, disapprove 46. That's a very strong number for the president. And the last one is Atlas. This is out of Brazil, but they were the most accurate pollsters in the election of 2024. 3,469 adults, a big sample. Okay. Do you approve or disapprove job Donald Trump is doing? Approve 45, disapprove 54. So, there's a big, it's almost exactly the opposite of Trafalgar. So joining us now is our go-to guy on the polling. John McLaughlin's an honest man. He works for President Trump. I mean, we got to let you know that. He likes Trump. He likes his policies. He polls for Trump, but he's an honest man. All right, so can you explain to us the difference between Trafalgar and Atlas?
Yes. Well, first of all, it's the difference between likely voters and adults. And we just posted a poll that we did last week at the same time as the Atlas poll was in the field. And we polled 1,000 likely voters modeled after the 2024 election in demographics. And we had Trump's job approval at 51 and his disapproval was 44. And it's a big difference because in the election last year, you only had 155 million voters go to the polls. There was over 90 million more eligible adults who didn't show up at the polls that there's polling when you're doing a polling
But
sample
what,
of adults.
what difference does that make? Shouldn't they have a right to put an opinion on Trump's performance?
Oh, they can have an opinion, but it's a poll of adults. It's not a poll of likely voters. So you get the disparity. And also, when you go through the Atlas sample, they have a crosstab for voted Trump, voted Harris. But in their demographics, they don't tell you how many people that they polled voted for Harris and voted for Trump. And that's been the flaw. We know in our likely voter polls, we used our polling as a strategy to raise his popular vote so we could sweep the battleground states, so we get 50% of the national vote, and to Harris's 48%. And that was our strategy. So it's not apples to apples. And when you look at Atlas, yeah, they were most accurate last year because they were doing something that replicated actual likely voters. These polls that are coming out now, where you've got, I mean, the New York Times put out a poll, they had only had 37% Trump voters. The Washington Post, ABC, had only 34%.
Yeah, I know, but
Trump.
we don't even bother with them anymore because we know how corrupt it is. They have their
Right.
thumb on the scale, to use a cliche. How do you think Donald Trump is doing, though? I mean, you're seeing numbers every day. It's obvious he was successful or is successful closing the border. Most people do support the ICE raids and getting that whole thing under control. But the tariff situation has roiled the American people and I think divided it. Would I be wrong in saying that?
Well, they don't grasp it as well as the tax cuts. We in the national poll that we put up, 58% want him to get the tax cuts passed. 20% secure the border, 7%, lower the price of oil and gas, 7% strengthen national defense. But at the same time, we asked in the same poll, do you think the tariffs have hurt or have they helped? And 47% think they've helped right now. That was as of last week. Only 38% said hurt. So the jury's still out on that. It's a much more complex issue. And hopefully,
sure. But it really isn't. You know why, John? Because what it's going to come down to, and this will clarify itself by November, I think, is whether people are paying more money for the essentials of life. That's what it's going to be. I mean, people don't have to understand who's paying it and where it's coming from, and this one's there, and that's steel here, and the cards are there, and the agricultural. They're going to walk into the grocery store and they're going, I'm getting a break under Trump, or I'm paying more under Trump. And that's what's going to decide it. Am I wrong?
No, you're exactly right. And that's why the tariffs issue is secondary and much, much less important than passing the tax cuts. Because if we don't pass the tax cuts, only half the voters know this. We know this from our polling. The Trump tax cuts lapse this year.
Yeah, and everybody pays more. There's no doubt about it. So it is a vital thing, and that's why Trump is behind it so hard. I think he's going to get it passed, but there's going to be some Senate modifications, and Trump will live with that. He knows he has to negotiate it. But the Democrats have downside too here, because if they vote en bloc not to pass it, then easily that anger when people's taxes go up can be transferred to the Democratic Party, right?
Right. But hopefully the taxes never go up. But the Democrats, every Democrat in the Senate and the House is on record as voting against extending the tax cuts. So they've all voted for the largest tax increase in the history of America. And we've got to hold them accountable. We got to get it
crazy.
passed.
And they hide behind this ridiculous, we just want to tax the rich. But it isn't that. It's everybody. And, it's the same thing about Medicaid. Oh, they want to throw people off Medicaid. No, they want to regulate it. They want to refine it. But anyway, political lies are, they're never ending. Last question for you. I think President Trump would have been better if he had not done so much so fast. It would have been easier for him to convince the American people of why he's doing what he's doing. But because the change has been so massive, because the Biden administration was so horrible, that it all came at once. And it's almost too much for the average person who doesn't do what you and I do for a living to grasp it. So they're more subjected to propaganda. So if he had just not done and just incrementally done it, I think he'd be in a stronger position. Do you agree?
You may be right, but it's hard to get him to do that. You know him personality-wise.
Yeah, I
And
know.
look, Biden left the country in such a mess. He has a 40 favorable, 56 unfavorable in our last poll. The guy left such a mess
Oh,
that Trump, he's got to solve wars in Ukraine, the Middle East, secure the border, and try to get the economy to grow all at the same time. And you're dealing with a president now who has survived two assassination attempts after they tried to put him in jail. So if we don't get the Trump tax cut passed, have a growing economy, and we lose control of the House in the midterms, then we've got a big problem because they'll impeach him again. And he
yeah,
knows
well,
that.
that's for sure. I'm writing about that in my message of today, tomorrow, about the midterms and now how it's starting to shape up. So, John, look, if you see any trends, just do me a favor. Let us know about the president, both pro and con, because I think our audience is we're numbers people here. Well, we don't want the propaganda. We want the hard numbers. And we really appreciate it, as always. Thanks for helping us out. Let's face it, the U.S. economy is under stress. National debt rising, trade war shaking the markets. And meanwhile, China is dumping the dollar and stockpiling gold. That's why I protected my savings with physical gold and silver through the only dealer I trust, American Hartford Gold. And you can do this. Get precious metals delivered to your door or place in a tax-advantaged gold IRA. They'll even help you roll over your existing IRA or 401k, tax and penalty free. With billions in precious metals delivered, thousands of five-star reviews, and an A+ from the Better Business Bureau, you can trust American Hartford Gold as I do. Please call 866-501-5201 or text BILL to 65532. Again, that's 866-501-5201 or text BILL to 65532. Tax day's over, but for many Americans, the trouble is just beginning. If you missed the April 15th deadline or still owe back taxes, listen up. The IRS is filing more than 5,000 new tax liens every day. And with tools like property seizures, bank levies, wage garnishments, they are applying pressure at levels we have never seen. But Tax Network USA has you covered. Are you self-employed or a business owner? They specialize in cleaning up financial chaos to get you back on track. You can still regain control. The consultation is absolutely free. Acting now could stop penalties, threatening letters, and surprise levies from escalating. So please call 800-958-1000 or visit tnusa.com/bill. Deadline is passed. Let Tax Network USA help you before the IRS makes their next move. 800-958-1000 or visit tnusa.com/bill. Okay, Boulder, that guy who attacked anti-Semitic guy, Mohammed Sabri Soleiman, overstayed his visa, and then did the Biden con, I want asylum, and the Biden people said, sure, and kept him in the country. It's just so bad. I can't tell you how bad Biden was. And once again, the Chinese had no use for him at all, none. Okay, but here's what I said about Biden's not enforcing immigration law. And I said this on June 12th, 24, about a year ago. Go. Do I believe there are terrorists here right now plotting to kill us? Yes. Do I believe they came across the open border between the USA and Mexico? Yes, I do. That's why I would never, under any circumstances, even consider voting for Joe Biden. And you're going to see more, unfortunately, of people who were here, got in under Biden failing to obey the law, and boom. Just a note to my producers, we'll do the sanctuary city tomorrow. I want to spend a little time on that. The Trump administration put out a list of sanctuary counties and cities that they're going after. We'll do it tomorrow. Along with Washington, D.C. is receding now, saying, well, maybe we don't want to be a sanctuary place. PBS, NPR are suing Trump because Trump says, we're not going to give you $55 billion anymore. It's exactly the same as the universities. Exactly the same. So PBS and NPR are just left wing. And we're paying for it. No. Now they say, oh, well, we're going to sue you because it's a violation of our freedom of speech. And then the loopy person who runs NPR, Catherine Marr, says this. Go.
The former NPR editor, Yuri Berliner, he accused the network of having what he called a lack of viewpoint diversity. How do you respond to those critiques?
Well, I first of all respond by saying we're a nonpartisan news organization. We seek to be able to provide a range of different viewpoints in terms of who we bring on air, the stories that we tell.
It's just bull. You know, it really is. She knows what she's saying isn't true. Okay? I don't know whether she lives in a bubble or not. I don't care. But anybody who listens to NPR, watches PBS, anybody, 5 years old, you would know. Ukraine attacked Russian aircraft within Russia, 5 different bases, blew up a whole bunch of planes, another embarrassment for Putin. Doesn't really care. And this Istanbul, Ukraine thing's living nowhere. I don't know if Trump can get Putin. I think Putin may be so psychologically damaged at this point. I'm not sure. But my thrust in Beijing was don't get in bed with Putin. Things are not going to end well for Putin. You heard it here. New York City has an epidemic of thugs, violent thugs attacking police. No question. Why wouldn't you? You're not held accountable. 2 guys beat up 2 cops in the Bronx. 16 adjournments. 1-6. Going on for a year and a half. Still hasn't gotten into court. Big headline in New York Post. Oh, the cops are getting in. The cops says, of course it's going to happen. More crazy stuff from the progressives who control New York City and state. Assaults on cops, this one stat I had, are up 63% in 6 years. Smart Life. Okay, let me just put this over here. Smart Life. Told you when the tariff stuff starts, don't sell stocks. Hold in. Remember that, right? So those of you follow my advice in the Smart Life segment, you got your money back, unless you had terrible stocks. Now I'm starting to sell some of my stocks. Not all of them, but the ones that are speculative, and I'll tell you why. I don't think that this turbulence in the world with China, with Ukraine, Putin, Iran, I think they're going to have to surrender, the mullahs. But this economic war, and this is not going to be short term. And it goes up and it goes down, it goes in and it goes out. It's your money, my money, I work hard for it. I'm trimming back a bit. Now, right away, I'm watching. Smart Life, I got to be honest with you. That's what we do here. All right? I'm not panicking. I'm keeping my core. But the more speculative, I'm selling. Bill's Book Club. If Oprah can have one, why can't I? Killing Lincoln was our bestseller of all the books. More than 3 million copies. That was our first one. There's a new book on Lincoln out called 1861, The Lost Peace. It's by Jay Winnick. All right? So if you're a Lincoln Civil War person, you want to check out Jay's work. And that's the Bill's Book Club. Thank you for watching. To view full episodes of the No Spin News anytime, sign up to become a BillO'Reilly.com premium or concierge member today.